What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we are going to be talking about X-Force number 47, written by Benjamin Percy with art by Daniel Picciotto and color by Guru FX. So, Colossus and his place on X-Force right now is, I would dare say, probably more tenuous than it has ever been the entirety of the run of X-Force that Benjamin Percy has been doing since House of X ended back in 2019. Colossus has just been in a weird place, and if you have not been keeping up with what's been going on with Colossus as of late, I do highly recommend you check out my playlist up here for X-Force. It'll get you caught up on everything that I feel you need to know to make any sense out of all of this. But to get into it, Colossus, as we saw in the previous issue of X-Force number 46, he had finally been freed of the influence of his wayward brother, Mikhail Rasputin, who had been using Colossus as a sleeper agent to infiltrate Krakoa and its political hierarchy and sow seeds of discord that would ultimately lead to Krakoa's downfall. And now that Colossus is free of those manipulations, the chronicler is no longer puppeteering him at Mikhail Rasputin's behest, and now Colossus can begin the healing process. But the issue here is that Colossus has lied and done so much snaky, sneaky, sus shit since Benjamin Percy took over X-Force. It's difficult for anyone on the team to take Colossus seriously, or even trust him for that matter. And while I feel it is noteworthy to say that in one of the data pages in this issue, it is revealed that X-Force held a vote in order to determine what to do about Colossus, and while no one really knows exactly what to do with him, it is stated that everyone does agree that he shouldn't be killed for what he did because he had no control over himself. They've poured into his mind. They have seen everything that he went through, and it's one of those situations where you kind of have to hate what the person did, but not the person that did it, because this person had no control over themselves whatsoever. It's not like we know truly what Colossus would have done if he would have had free will in this moment, and it's even something that is hinted at and teased when Colossus muses about it himself, because he does state that he himself, when making a case for what should or should not be done to him, he doesn't really truly fully know what he would have done if Mikhail Rasputin, instead of manipulating him, using the reality warping powers of the chronicler to force Colossus into working with him, he doesn't know if he would have worked with Mikhail Rasputin. And I say this because, and this is very important to think about, is the fact that while Mikhail Rasputin is depicted as the villain in all this, there are some aspects of Krakoa that he wasn't wrong about. The fact that Krakoans did start to feel as though they were better than everyone else. The statement that I have constantly brought up that Magneto said during House of X number 1 that has literally haunted mutant kind since Magneto uttered those words, that you have new gods now, referring to humanity needing to bow down and kiss the ring of mutant kind. This is one of those scenarios where when you see stuff like that, and I know some people, it's one of those situations where they want to, just go along with their favorite characters because, and it's like the whole Thanos was right thing, even though technically, Thanos is the bad guy, he's the homicidal, genocidal maniac. There are people out there who want to put on the cape for this character, say, no, man, he was making some points. He was right. He did what needed to be done. I know a lot of people love Magneto, so a lot of people's perspective on what Magneto said may be very incredibly skewed, but what Magneto said was incredibly out of pocket, and it's not something that was going to garner any sympathy or goodwill from anyone he said it to. And honestly, you're crazy if you think otherwise. I'm sorry, you can't tell people that you're their god all of a sudden, regardless of whether or not you have the power to be so, and expect them to like you. That's crazy talk. So yeah, Mikhail was right, and Colossus agrees. He doesn't agree with everything that Mikhail thought about Krakoa, but he did see the underlying problems that Krakoa had. And to be fair, that was just some of them. There were tons of other problems with Krakoa, things that were highlighted in the Sabretooth and Sabretooth in the Exiles miniseries, where it was revealed that some mutants weren't treated the same as other mutants on the island. The fact that in the Sabretooth series, more specifically, it was highlighted that characters who were effectively Morlocks, which is to mean mutants who can't pass for being normal, characters who look like they are not normal humans, these characters were treated differently than your regular average mutants who look like normal humans until they use their powers. If you go over to the Way of X series, it was highlighted the fact that mutants were just getting freaky deaky on the island, having babies willy-nilly and not taking care of them, to the point that a nursery had to be created where these child mutants could be looked after because people were more interested in creating the baby than actually taking care of the baby. And then you also get over to the Hellion series, where Krakoa didn't know what to do with its mutants who were, quotey fingers, problem children, where in some cases the Hellions, it did actually rehabilitate a lot of characters, but it was still just the fact, the Quiet Council tried to hold these mutants to a different standard, and at the same time that they picked and chose who they allowed to be rehabilitated and ultimately who they didn't want to. Like the characters they were willing to give a million chances to and the ones that they were only willing to give one. Even if it was a character that, while by and large probably was just as evil as the next guy or just as bad as the next guy, it just seemed like there were some characters that they were way more willing to deal with than others. And then don't even get me started over on the New Mutant side of things, where certain characters tried to be rehabilitated and no one would let them. Like they tried to be better. The Shadow King character, he tried to be better and no one wanted to believe that he had actually changed. Same goes for Madeline Pryor. These characters were eventually allowed their redemption, but ultimately it took an act of Congress to get it. Of course, all the other characters who were exiled for just protecting themselves. And in one case, you can make an argument for Orphan Maker having killed someone. That's another story altogether. Toad killing Wanda Maximoff, that's another story altogether. But yeah, it's not to say Krakoa was perfect. It had its fair share of issues that are highlighted across multiple titles. And Colossus, he doesn't know what he would have chosen. He doesn't know if he would have actually worked with Mikhail willingly, or if maybe he would have tried to be a gateway, a bridge between Mikhail Rasputin and the Quiet Council and Krakoa and try and fix things that way. There's no ever truly knowing because Colossus wasn't given a choice. Now, another issue that comes up with Colossus, because while Domino is trying to help him figure out how he can build back the trust between himself and the other members of X-Force, there is a moment where he does realize, because Domino does point out he was on the Quiet Council, he knows a lot of Quiet Council secrets. And while we don't know exactly how much he remembers from his time being a puppet of Mikhail Rasputin, he does at least know enough that he's able to make an attempt. He doesn't actually achieve it, but he does make an attempt to warn Wolverine about what's coming. And it's something that's going to be handled more on the Wolverine side of things when we pick back up with, I believe it's going to be Wolverine number 41. We will get to see the return of an age-old tradition between Wolverine and Sabretooth. For those unfamiliar, Sabretooth has a tradition, a running tradition with Wolverine, that he always shows up to mess with him on his birthday. And his birthday is coming up. This is actually something that was teased at the end of Sabretooth and the Exiles. And if you want to know more about what was going on in that series, you can go check out this link up here. But towards the end of that series, Sabretooth and a bunch of variants of Sabretooth from across the multiverse, they're now running roughshod, in the wake of everything that has been going on as of late, even before the Hellfire Gala. But we really haven't seen much of Sabretooth since then, so he's very likely been laying low. And he is set to return to pick back up that old tradition of giving Wolverine a very difficult time on his birthday. Colossus is trying to warn Wolverine about the fact that Sabretooth is no longer in the pit, and he doesn't get to do it. And because once again, there are shenanigans that occur. We'll get to the interruption here in just a moment, but before we do, let me just mention Alpha Flight shows up in this, or rather, not Alpha Flight as a whole, but parts of Alpha Flight. As we know, if you go back and check out my video up here for Alpha Flight number 5, you'll know that most of Alpha Flight is in prison right now, thanks to Department H. But the characters Northstar, Aurora and Fang, they are on the run. So they wind up catching up with X-Force, and they're combining their forces right now to try and help rehabilitate the current situation regarding mutants. They have, with the help of Black Tom Cassidy, created the greenhouse, a kind of extension of Krakoa out in the middle of the North Pole, and they are trying to bring in all the mutants they can find, give them shelter, but this is going to be one of those situations. It can't be as free and open as Krakoa originally was, because as Sage points out, that there is the possibility that humans will try and infiltrate their safe haven, the greenhouse, and there's also the potential that there could be bad eggs among some of the mutants that are seeking help. And so yeah, it's one of those things. It's funny how this whole scenario just set up a much more dire situation that I don't think people even perceived was capable of happening. That's kind of the thing I always harped about when people kept complaining about the Krakoan era, that, oh, everything's perfect now and the mutants are doing this and there's no stakes anymore and they can just die and come back whenever. But in reality, there were stakes to that. There were people who died and they remember those deaths, and there are some people who died who don't remember some of the terrible things that happened that they probably should remember, because it would have helped them avoid other issues later down the road. There's also the issue that when you build something up to such high a point as what Krakoa was elevated to, when it's taken away, the fall is going to be that much harder, which is where we're at right now, Fall of X. And I think some people just get too caught up in the now and aren't thinking about, down the line. It's like, they can't see the forest for, all the trees. And in this case, they were Krakoan trees. You may not like the current direction of the X-Men comics, and you may not even like where we inevitably know the X-Men are going after the Fall of X, but I can tell you one thing that you will like, and it's this damn video. You're going to click that like button, and you're going to tap subscribe if you have not already done so, and hit that notification bell so that way you always keep up with my coverage of comics like X-Force, as well as other X-Men comics and other titles from Marvel and DC. And not only that, but you're going to share the video too, because you want to help other people find this amazing content that I am providing to you. All that said, speaking of amazing things, Kid Omega has, while he's been dealing with some issues, he's had some performance issues with his powers as of late after all of the shenanigans of helping take X-Force into the future to stop Beast as he was spreading his influence across all of time. Well, in doing so, his powers went haywire, but now those same powers did in a roundabout way help him find his lost girlfriend, Phoebe. His powers, while they are on the fritz, they are working just enough that he is able to psychically determine that Phoebe is still alive. As we know, during the Hellfire Gala, a lot of mutants were displaced, some were even killed, and while the fate of the Stepford Cuckoos was left largely up in the air, we now know that at least one of them did survive, and that would be Phoebe, albeit she had to turn into her diamond form in order to survive the Sentinel attacks. What I find very interesting about this, and I think some people do tend to forget that the Stepford Cuckoos have pretty much the exact same powers as Emma Frost does, her being their biological mother and all that. But a lot of people tend to forget that means that they have all of her abilities. They all have the ability to turn into a diamond form, and just like with Emma Frost, when turned into that diamond form, they become incapable of using their telepathic abilities, but also become immune to the telepathic abilities of other people. So that's what makes all this really interesting, is the fact that he was able to suss out that Phoebe was alive, where she was, despite the fact that she was in a diamond form and he shouldn't have been able to figure out where she was. That said, I think a lot of this is largely explained away just by virtue of the fact that Quentin is seeing like psychic flashbacks, and in one of them, Phoebe is reaching out, calling out to Quentin during the attack. And I feel like he's just picking up psychic feedback from that, because we see that she does turn into her diamond form to protect herself from being killed by Moira X. Now, earlier I mentioned the character Dakin, aka Fang, gets an appearance here in this thanks to Alpha Flight, kind of joining forces with X-Force. But the reunion you would imagine between Lara, Logan, and Dakin, it does get cut extremely short, because at the end of this issue, we learn that Beast is still on the horizon. Beast, who last we saw, I believe it was in Wolverine number 35, which if you're not familiar with the goings on there, check out this video up here. But during that issue, X-Force had taken it to Beast. Beast had been acting a whole monkey out here in these streets. He was out here performing experiments on humans, mutants, and aliens. He was doing all kinds of problematic stuff and was even kind of figuring out ways to subvert the Krakoan political system and using X-Force's, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, their Black Ops status, the fact that they were highly classified, no one really knew about them. I mean, they were aware of them, but no one really just knew how it worked or what exactly it was. He used a lot of that to perform some pretty shady operations. And going from that, we also learn that while Beast was mortally wounded, he did manage to escape in that same issue. And it seems now he's all healed up, and he's got the members of X-Force in his crosshairs. That said, we know that this new story arc is all about bringing Beast to heel, and to do so, they're going to need help from someone who can think exactly like Beast. And the only person who thinks like Beast is Beast. This means that they are going to have to find one of Beast's clones, something we know that X-Force is successful in doing thanks to some of the solicits that were released about roughly 2 to 3 weeks ago. We know from the Wolverine series, all of Beast's clones should be dead. But that's actually not true. We know that Beast has stashed different clones of himself throughout time and various points. So there is a way via time travel if they should want to try and find a specific Beast that they could use to help bring down Beast Prime. But if time travel is off the table, there is another way this could all be happening. One other way this could go down is that Sage does take a moment to mention in passing that all of Beast files that they had seized during Wolverine number 35, she's gonna take at least 2 months to get through all of them to break down the encryptions and figure out what Beast was up to. But something tells me she's going to encrypt those files either A, way faster than she thinks, or B, she is going to encrypt just enough of them to learn about Beast's personal resurrection protocols. As we saw over the course of the Wolverine series, when Beast is killed, the 5 on Krakoa were not resurrecting him the way they were resurrecting everyone else. Beast had a system in place where he would automatically be resurrected without anyone else's help. He had an entire backup system already set with his own Cerebro, and he was able to instantaneously revive himself and provide his memories, his backup memories, up to the point of death. And something tells me Sage is going to figure out where all this was taking place, and they'll either recover it from the fallen Krakoan Megazord the Beast was using as his base of operations, or maybe they'll find it elsewhere. But they're going to find a Beast, and that Beast is going to help them, or so they believe. That one is kind of tricky because the Beast clones, while they all were inferior to the original Beast because Beast would alter their DNA in such ways that he would be able to make them feel less than himself. One of the key ways he did this was making them nearsighted, so that way you could always tell which beasts were which, because Beast Prime didn't have to wear glasses. The rest of them had to. When you go from that, and once again, I'm only talking about the Beast clones, not the actual resurrected versions of Beast. What is of note is that those clones always wound up being not much different than Beast himself, even to the point where they even tried to take down Beast Prime and take his place. So they think like Beast. They are Beast in every way, shape, form, or fashion other than eyesight for the most part. And I wonder if what's going to happen here is that maybe Sage is going to find a way to edit out some of the memories of Beast so that maybe take him back to a point where he hasn't completely lost his goddamn mind, probably even going back prior to Brian Michael Bendis' X-Men series, before he even brought back the original X-Men from the past to the present. So it could be any number of things, but I do definitely believe taking him back a few stages is probably going to be the best way to ensure that this Beast doesn't turn on them in some way. But I feel like, and once again, I can't help but feel like there is not going to be 100% cooperation between this Beast and X-Force. At least I don't foresee it, but there will be cooperation, if only to stop this, Beast Prime from just acting a whole fool. Either way, this is basically John Spartan rules. Send a maniac to catch one. But I know, like, for people who were angry at the fact that Beast is, you know, so villainous now, which honestly I think is great. I love it. I love when Beast is, you know, an asshole and evil in this series. So I think it's just chef's kiss. But for those people who want the old Beast back, the old My Stars and Garters Beast, the Beast that they remember from the X-Men animated series, I feel like this is gonna wind up being pretty damn fun. And not only will it be pretty damn fun, but I also think it's gonna suck for X-Force. I don't think this is gonna go as smoothly as they think it will, because none of the Fall of X stuff has gone smoothly for anyone. Right now, they're potentially getting something really good, and that something really good is gonna come with some receipts. I think it's only a matter of time before someone gets bit in the ass over this. But anyway, that's everything I wanted to talk about with X-Force number 47. If you enjoyed this video and you want to keep up with more of my coverage of X-Force and X-Men and, you know, other titles from Marvel and DC, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that way you don't miss anything. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video out of a litany of things you could have been watching on this platform. And until next time, let me know what you thought about X-Force number 47. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.